Welcome to Radio Fixer's channel. Subscribe for upcoming videos. Welcome back to part 5, Rat House Radio Restoration. For those of you who just joined us, we want to welcome you. I suggest highly to go back and watch other parts to this radio. In part 1, we discussed the condition of the radio and also possibility to be able to repair it, because it was, as you can see in these pictures, it was in very bad condition. In part 2, we disassembled the radio, we disinfected it and derusted, removed the rust. On part 3, we paint the chassis and reassemble some of the parts. On part 4, we repair IF transformer because I could not find another one to fit the chassis, so it been forced to repair that. Also rewind all the wires. We also installed paper capacitors, and some of the resistor was replaced. And end of that part 4 was so nice of Dennis and Steve to give me information to find the schematic. And of course, Dennis is from Antique Radio Forum, and Steve just messaged me through YouTube. Since now I have the schematic, I can continue the restoration, because could not tell what type of capacitor was used or some of the resistors. Because now I have the schematics, I can work on part 5. On part 5, we're going to install the large capacitors. Usually there is 2 capacitors inside one. As you see in these pictures, this one was in very bad condition, and really it was not belong to these radios. Somebody just installed some type of capacitors there. And also we're going to repair or rebuild oscillator coil. I tried to use other oscillator. I tried several of them that I have, and none of them worked. So I've been forced really, and which I'm glad, to be able to work on oscillator coil and try to repair it or really rebuild it. And so I really appreciate your time. Enjoy this video. Okay folks, now that I have the schematic, shows what type of capacitors I need. Now there is 2 capacitors. One of them is 30 megafarad and another one is 20 megafarad. As you notice here, they both, the negative is goes to C10. That is, the C10 in this radio is the chassis. Positive side, the 30 megafarad goes to tubes 35Z5, that's a rectifier tube as the schematic shows, and that hook up to pin 8. Also the 20 megafarad hooked up to 50L6 output tube as shows in the schematic and goes to pin 4. That's why I need a schematic, because then it tells you exactly what everything hooked up, because as this capacitor, as I mentioned earlier, was such a bad condition, the wire broke off, so I had no clue what size of capacitors I could use. You cannot use wrong capacitor size here. You can damage all the tubes. Of course, we can go up to 22 and also to 32 megafarad. So anyway, let's start putting these things together. All right, here we have a dilemma. I'm looking for capacitor. I cannot find my 22 stash. I'm sure I put it somewhere safe, but I don't remember where it was. As soon as I, make this video, go through all this pain, I'm going to find it. So anyway, the plan I have, I'm going to use, usually hold on to burnout, lights like this. When they burn out, inside each of them it has a capacitors. I know the larger one that is is about almost 100 watts or so, they use 22 in it. So I have one of those. I'm going to take it apart and take the capacitors out. I'm going to use the 33 from here, from Sal's, that I bought all this from, and I'm sure I'm going to find that. but I will show you how to do this, how to take this apart and take the capacitor inside and test the capacitor. If it's in good shape, then you can of course use it in radio. The schematic called for 150 volts, and the good thing about these things are these are about 200 volts. Going high volts doesn't really hurt anything. It's sometimes much better. But remember, if the schematic says 30 megafarad, the max you can go is 33. If it says 20, the max you can go 22. To find 30 megafarad and 20, you might be able to find it, but it costs much more. So anyway, let me show you the process of how to taking this apart. So just go around like that carefully. See, just here, just came apart. All right. That's what's inside. This capacitor can be used. So again, 200 volts. All right. Cut the wire out. All right. Recycle this part. Lift it out like that. You see there's two wires here. I'm going to cut this wire out. Okay. See, it's already burned out. All right. Again, this should be recycled. Usually what I do, I take it to places that they recycle this and recycle that. All right, this part is out. So I'm gonna, I wanna take this capacitor, of course, out. So I'm gonna look at see where the wires are, mark it, and I'm gonna solder that area. Okay, one goes right here, and the other one is right here, I assume. Okay, so those are the two. I'm gonna unsolder it. Then we can test the capacitor and we are in the business if everything works out. All right, let's unsolder this. One of them is right here. Okay, jam off. And unsolder the other side. All right, this one came out. So we want to measure these capacitors to see if it's in good condition or not, because I don't want to install it in a radio without testing it. Okay, we're going to set it capacitors. All right, let's test it. That is excellent. 21. We can use this. That is good. All right, I find my bag. I do a bunch of them here, so I found the bag for you all. Don't get nervous. I put it somewhere else. But hey, in the process, we learn to use other products around the house and make it work, right? That's the most important thing. Okay, here I'm adding two negative sides of capacitors together to just hook up one lead wire to it. The reason I'm adding these lead wires are that, to be able to install it, of course, in chassis. That's going to make it much easier if you add this outside the chassis. And then the black one, of course, is a negative, and the red one going to be the 30 megafarad wire that I'm adding. And I put an installation over them and here I use the lighter, to shrink that shrinkable insulation, just because you don't want the wire touch each other. Of course, that's why we are doing it. After the soldering them, as you can see here, then we install it under the chassis. All right, now we put the capacitors together. So what we need to focus on the next section to work in oscillator coil. That you see is not in good condition, so let's work on it. I tried several, those three on the left side of the oscillator coils, and none of them worked. Also, purchased the oscillator to the right, which is universal for AM radio, and some station work, it wasn't working pretty well. And so what I thought, I said, let me go and take radio form and put put over there some information about the radio, and hopefully somebody gonna help me. You cannot believe, there's that how many people they actually answered me right away with a lot of suggestion. I really appreciate all of their time. This is the list of them, of the people who helped me out and gave me a lot of suggestion. Again, I do not have electronic background. I do this as a hobby. Really, my goal always been to preserve these radios, and if it's possible to keep it as original as possible. That's why I want to restore, rebuild the oscillator coil. Hopefully it's going to work. What I did, I take the oscillator coil out of the radio. I sit down, did this drawing. The schematic, shows the connection. And of course I put it on a piece of paper. So when I rewind this coil, at least I know where everything goes. Yellow is the beginning and the end of the wire. It starts from the ground, it turns clockwise, and it goes all the way to number 1. And there is a tab to this at number 3 that it tapped into the coil. So the resistance in the bottom, it shows, what type of resistance it has, where, number 1 and 3, where actually they're going to hook up. I had to put this on the paper so I understand it. The schematic is great, but this is how I really could understand it. I use this concept. As you see, I take the oscillator coil, I rewind all the wires. When I take it out, it was counterclockwise. So that told me when I want to wind it back, it should be clockwise. The schematic told me these are the readings that I should have, from point to point. So I started winding it, and this is the product that I used. This was the first try, and I was hoping this will work. It was on sale on antique radio forums, and I bought it. I thought someday I need it. So we know it goes clockwise, because when we remove it, we took it the other direction. Give us extra lead here, and start. I'm going to start into maybe the top first. All right, 1, 2. Up to now is 85. That was 90. Okay, that's about 150. I'm going to put a tape here so it doesn't come off. Use a sandpaper to get the clear coat out of the wire, be able to measure it. All right, both of the windings finished. As this is 4.9, exactly like what the schematic says. The other line, which I taped green, is 4.3 ohm. And so these are both done. Takes a little time, of course, both the beginning I soldered it to the ground joint because that's what the schematic said. As you noticed, when I was trying to connect this capacitor, mega capacitors, 50 PF, because the wires, everything's rusted out, they broke off. And so I were able to use the same one because I don't have any more 50 PF, and it seems like it's working. Now I'm putting everything back together. I tested and it shows, correct reading. I was lucky, it was a very, very small piece left. And so I were able to solder that, another wire to it. All right, folks, let's get this thing started. This is going to be first try out. I'm hoping it's going to work, but you never know until you start it. I hooked it up to the loaner speaker that I have through the test wire. And let's crank it. And I hope you're hearing there are some noises in the background, so that tells me the audio system is working. That at least that's a good sign. And let's see if there is any station is going to pick up any stations. So I'm trying to see it's picking up any station. Unfortunately, there is cannot pick up any station at all. Of course, this is, is normal. Up to now we were just putting the parts together, repairing each part, putting it together. Now is a troubleshooting to see where the issues are so we can fix it. There's a couple of things I'm going to do. First, I'm going to use my voltmeter, multimeters, and look through schematics and test all the voltage to see if there's a voltage reverse matched to schematic. And if everything is fine, then it might be the oscillator coil that I used. As a matter of fact, and take your radio form, Dan, he mentioned that here his concern is that the wire that I used might not work, since his experience tell him that the wire is usually used for wrapping the coils is the coil called Litz wire, Litz wire, and so that might be another issue. So I ordered some wire, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to try to see if I can rewrap it with whatever wire that was in this coil, to see if that's going to work out or not. All right, we're gonna hook this up to electricity. I hooked it up, and as you can tell, already started. And this is, I had to redo it again, and so is picking up one station, and trying to work these things out. But it's so exciting because I never thought this is gonna come back to life. As you see, I run a lot of test lead here. The antenna is back there. You cannot see the antenna that is come with the radio. And let's just hear it for a second. And do you remember how bad this radio was? And it was a piece of junk. I used to call it, a dead rat radio. And look, and it's not even all the way down the volume. See, the light is working and everything. See, it's picking up. It's picking up unbelievable. So what I'm going to do next is I need to get some of this more wire because I used whatever left. Remember, it was very corroded, and it was very bad condition. So I used whatever was left over, and so if I can find that type of wire, is the cloth, cover. It's a very thin wire, and if I can find that, I need to add some more. So I assume I can pick up more station. I'm not sure, but even I'm happy with one, picking up one station. As you remember, this was just a big mess. It really, 99% of the time they just trashed this radio because there was not that much part that you could actually use, and just maybe one tube was fine or so. And so anyway, just want to show this to you that anything is possible. And instead of throwing it away, yeah, it takes me a long time, do one thing at a time. Next, I'm going to restore this coil. This is the speaker coil. I want in this radio use as much original part as possible. So you see, it can be restored. So currently I'm using different one. I have a spare one that I bought a long time ago, but I'm going to fix this. I already tested it, work on the radio, but I'm going to get rid of the rust. I'm going to cover it better. And this is all the rat aided, and back there, I'm going to put some stuff, trying to save this, trying again to save as much as I can on this radio, just to show you that anything is possible. Yes, it will take time, but it's, you have to just be very safe, use the right, the equipment so you don't get electrocuted. You're never going to touch the radio with both hands, even it hooked up to, every equipment you imagine for safety, which I showed to you earlier what you need. And again, I'm so excited. You turn it on, and it's on. And with all these wires going around, these are the test leads because, I want to make sure everything works before I put it back together. I don't know of anything that has been approved that is going to give any kind of tax relief this year. I want to take the opportunity and thank you for taking your valuable time watching these videos. If you're interested to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel and you will be notified when a new video being uploaded. You have a great day.